I was in the hardware store when I got the email. Aisle 9. Fluorescence. I'd come for bulbs, long tubes, warm white for the ceiling fixture in the laundry room. The one Evan had cracked 3 weeks ago playing indoor soccer with his friends. He didn't apologize. He didn't offer to fix it. He didn't even acknowledge it. I paid for the damage like I always did, quietly, without ceremony, and told myself it wasn't worth the fight. He was 17. Boys make mistakes. What matters is that he has a roof over his head and someone to keep that roof from falling. So I stood there, bulbs under one arm, and my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. An email. No subject line, just about Saturday. The party. His 18th birthday. The one I had planned 6 weeks in advance. The one I paid for in full. Catering deposit, venue rental, music, custom cake with the band logo he loved, guest goodie bags with chargers and colognes, and some rare trading cards I tracked down from an obscure Japanese site just because he'd mentioned them once. I opened the message. It was one line. Don't come. You'll just be a nuisance. You can look it up online later. That was it. No greeting. No explanation. No call to follow. No punctuation beyond the period that ended me. For a moment I didn't react. Just stared at the screen like it had misfired. Like the message was meant for someone else and slipped through the wires of the world by accident. But it wasn't a mistake. It was Evan. It was my son. I stood there frozen between rows of light bulbs, a man suspended in the soft hum of artificial lighting and the distant buzz of weekend shoppers. A man who had spent thousands, literal thousands, to make this event happen. And I was told not to show up. Not even told. Dismissed. Ordered. You'll just be a nuisance. I reread that line until it stopped hurting. Then I read it again until it did. He didn't want me there. Not because he had other plans. Not because of a scheduling error or a miscommunication. No, it was simpler than that. He didn't want to be seen with me. Didn't want to explain me. Didn't want to answer the questions that might follow if someone asked, "Is that your dad?" I wasn't a father in his story. I was a logistical error. A shadow funding the background. That was the moment it cracked. Not all the way, but just enough for the light to bleed through. A harsh, fluorescent light that illuminated the truth I had been avoiding for years. To Evan, I was not family. I was function. I paid for things. I drove him places. I signed forms. I picked him up when his mother couldn't. I stayed home when he was sick. I nodded during the parent-teacher meetings when they praised his progress in math. I watched from the car when he played soccer, clapping quietly when he scored, even when he didn't look back to see. But I was never in the picture. Only behind it. Always behind it. Every year I convinced myself it would change. That as he got older he'd see. He'd recognize what it meant to carry another man's child. Not because you had to, but because you chose to. But standing there in aisle 9, I realized something sickening. Evan didn't see me at all. He saw what I gave, not who gave it. He saw the outcome, never the effort. He saw the birthday party, not the man who worked overtime to pay for it. He saw his mother smile when the cake was delivered, not the look on my face when the credit card bill came in. He saw the celebration, not the sacrifice. And now he didn't even want me in the room. You can look it up online later. That part stung more than the insult, because it wasn't just rejection. It was replacement. A suggestion that my presence wasn't just unwanted, it was obsolete. Whatever I needed to know about his life, I could find online. As if I were a distant relative. A forgotten uncle. A name in the database. Not a man who had poured himself into 17 years of fatherhood and received nothing back but silence and obligation. I put the bulbs down. Just left them on the metal shelf where they belonged. I didn't want to fix that light anymore. What was the point? He'd break it again. Probably not even notice. And I'd repair it again, like I always did. Because that's what I had become, the repairman. Not the father. Not the man who tucked him in at night when he was sick. Not the one who patched the drywall when he threw his PlayStation controller through it in a rage. Not the one who stayed awake until 2 a.m. during finals week, quizzing him on biology because he couldn't afford a tutor. Not the one who sat in that cheap folding chair during middle school graduation, camera in hand, heart full of a pride he didn't know how to express. I walked out of the store, didn't buy anything, didn't speak to anyone, just walked. The lot was full of weekenders. Men loading mulch into trucks, families comparing paint samples, and I moved through them like a ghost. When I got home, the house was quiet. Karen was out, probably shopping for centerpieces. She loved details, loved fussing over seating charts and balloon arches. She'd been planning Evan's birthday like it was a wedding. I let her. I paid for it all and let her have that joy. I sat in the living room, shoes still on, and opened the party folder on my laptop. Checked the budget. Rechecked the invoice for the DJ. Pulled up the guest list. Crossed my name off it. It wasn't just hurt. It was clarity. It was the long, slow unraveling of a delusion. I had told myself for so long that presence was enough. That eventually Evan would understand. That one day he'd look at me, really look, and see not just the man who married his mother, but the man who had chosen him. But now I saw the truth. To Evan I was a donor, not of blood, of funds. A man whose existence mattered only insofar as it kept the gears turning. I wasn't not wanted. I was unnecessary. He wanted the party, not the man who made it possible. I was a nuisance. I closed the laptop, leaned back in the chair, and stared at the ceiling. I think I stayed like that for almost an hour. The sound of the refrigerator kicking in, the tick of the wall clock, the quiet hum of a house I helped maintain but was never truly welcomed in. I didn't cry. It was worse than that. I went numb. Because when a man realizes his efforts were never seen as love, only as obligation, something dies in him. Not loudly, not with rage, but slowly, like a flame running out of air. When Karen got home, I didn't tell her. She was humming to herself, holding sample napkins. "Can you believe they're charging extra for lavender?" she asked, laughing. I told them just plain white would be fine, but Evan hates plain white. He says it's sterile. I nodded, said nothing. She didn't notice. Of course she didn't. I trained her not to. For years I kept my disappointments quiet, my sacrifices private. I made it easy for her to forget what it took to keep this family upright. I was the man who handled it. But now I knew what I was. I wasn't invited to the party. I wasn't a father. I was an investor, and my return was rejection. I didn't confront him. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't storm into his room. I didn't ask Karen to explain it away, to smooth the insult into something palatable. I let it sit. I let it rot. Because rot doesn't begin with one deep cut. It starts in the places you ignore. And the truth was that message hadn't wounded me. Not really. It had confirmed what I already knew. What I had known for years. Evan didn't love me. He didn't hate me either. That would have required emotion. He simply regarded me as a fixture, permanent, practical, peripheral, like the Wi-Fi router humming in the corner of the living room. Necessary, but invisible, and only noticed when it stopped working. It hadn't always been like this, or maybe it had. Maybe I was too blind to see it when he was young. Back then, the small gestures masked the distance. A crayon drawing on Father's Day. A half hug when he wanted something. A mumbled thanks after getting the phone he begged for. I mistook those crumbs for affection, for progress. But they weren't. They were reflexes, transactions. For every gift I gave, I got just enough civility to keep me giving. And I gave. God, did I give? It started the day I married Karen. Evan was 9. His real father, Daniel, had moved across the state, started over with a yoga instructor and a new set of stepkids who didn't remind him of his failures. Evan only saw him twice a year, when Daniel could spare the time between detox retreats and corporate motivational weekends. That absence created a vacuum, and I, like a fool, tried to fill it. I bought Evan's first bike. It was red, with black pegs and silver spokes. He didn't say much when I wheeled it out of the garage. Just nodded, then asked if he could ride it to his friend's house. I told myself he was shy, that he just needed time, that eventually he'd warm to me. He didn't, but I kept buying. Football camp? I paid the full tuition, plus extra for the travel uniform. He quit 2 weeks in. Said the coach was annoying. Never wore the jersey again. I still have it folded in the attic. When he turned 12, he begged for guitar lessons. Said music was who he really was. I bought him a Fender starter pack guitar amp case. Signed him up for weekly lessons with a guy named Ramon who charged more than our plumber. Evan went 3 times, then got bored. The guitar gathered dust in the corner of his room for years, until Karen finally donated it during one of her spring cleaning frenzies. And still, I kept giving, because I thought that's what made a father. I worked late nights and weekends to keep up. Took consulting jobs after hours, tax prep in the spring, design gigs in the fall. I told myself the exhaustion was temporary, that eventually the dividends would come. I imagined the day he'd hug me without being asked. The day he'd call me Dad in front of his friends. The day he'd say thank you not out of obligation, but because he understood. That day never came. Instead, I got silences. Long, deliberate silences. I was the one who paid his school tuition when Karen lost her job. I filled out the FAFSA forms, argued with the bursar's office, emailed teachers when he slacked. I covered the $1,100 when he cracked his laptop screen and told us it was a factory defect. I replaced his phone 4 times. The last one I gave him, an iPhone 13 Pro, was the one he used to send that email. The one that told me I was a nuisance. Karen called it a phase. Said I had to let him grow. That boys push boundaries. That I was too sensitive. But there's a difference between growing and rejecting. Between teenage angst and emotional eviction. And then came the night before the party. Karen was asleep. Evan thought I was too. But I wasn't. I was downstairs in my study. My office. My cave. The one place in the house that still felt like mine. I had the door cracked open. Just enough to let in air. Just enough to hear the footsteps above. He was on a group call. I could hear it through the ceiling vents. Laughter. Background music. The click-clack of his mechanical keyboard. He was planning something, probably the final details for the party I was no longer welcome at. Then I heard it. God. If Mark shows up, I swear, I'm leaving. The room went quiet. Then laughter. Someone asked something I couldn't make out. And Evan said, with a voice I hadn't heard in a long time, light, confident, casual. He's not even my real dad. He's just like pressure, dead weight. He shows up and everyone feels awkward. He'll ruin the whole vibe. Dead weight. That was what I was to him. Not family. Not support. Not sacrifice in human form. Dead weight. He kept talking, but I stopped listening. Couldn't. My heart was pounding too loud. I stared at the desk in front of me, at the neatly stacked invoices for the venue, the catering menu, the guest list spreadsheet. My name wasn't on it. I had checked. Not even once. Not even a courtesy mention. I remembered something he said last year in passing, that birthdays were cringe, that he didn't want a big deal made. I had believed him. And yet, here he was planning a social event with over 60 guests without me. Because I was pressure. A weight. Something to avoid. When the call ended and the house fell silent, I didn't move. Not for minutes. Not even when the air went cold and the vent above me stopped humming. I sat in that chair, staring at everything I had built for a child who saw me as nothing but noise. A wallet with a voice. A glitch in the algorithm of his curated life. He had said it so easily, so naturally, as if it had always been the truth. As if he had never even considered me in any other light. That's what broke me. Not the cruelty. The ease. The casual way he erased me. I thought of every night I stood outside in the rain waiting for his school bus. Every hour spent helping him finish last-minute science projects. Every time I took the blame when he broke things around the house just to keep peace with Karen. Every time I told myself it was worth it. That being a father was a long game. That love didn't always look like love in the moment. What a lie. I was a supporting actor in someone else's family photo. And the photographer never even adjusted the lens to fit me in frame. I rose from the chair slowly, my knees aching with age and fatigue, and turned off the light. I stood in the hallway, staring at the staircase that led to Evan's room. I wanted to go up there. I wanted to stand at the door and ask him what I had done to deserve this. To make him list the failures I'd committed that reduced me from stepfather to stranger. But I didn't, because I knew what he'd say. Nothing. He wouldn't have an answer, because it had never been about what I did. It was about what I wasn't, his father, and that disqualified me, no matter the years, no matter the effort, no matter the cost. I turned away from the stairs and went to bed, my body heavy with the weight of a role I had performed for 17 years, only to be told the script was never real. Karen stirred as I got in, asked if I was okay. I lied, told her I was just tired, that I had a long day. She kissed my cheek, rolled over, and drifted off again. I stared at the ceiling, and in that stillness, I realized what I had become. Not a stepfather, not even a sponsor, just a symptom of someone else's story. And tomorrow, the day of his party, would be the first day I did not play along. I didn't speak to him the next morning. I made coffee, sat at the table, sipped it slowly while the sun peeled through the curtains like a quiet interrogation. Karen was already up, bustling in the kitchen, humming something tuneless. I watched her place plates in a row like offerings. Pancakes, fruit, bacon, the kind of spread you make when you want to prove everything's fine. She didn't know. Not yet. Evan came down 30 minutes later, earbuds in, hoodie up, fingers glued to his phone. He didn't look at me, didn't say good morning, didn't even pretend to acknowledge the man who had paid for his breakfast, who had kept the lights on, who had kept the wolves at bay. He sat, scrolled. Karen tried to talk about the party, which table would hold the desserts, which backdrop Evan wanted for the selfie booth. She laughed at one of her own ideas, looked to me for approval. I nodded. Nothing more. It was a strange, quiet thing. Mourning the death of a role you were never allowed to hold. Because I had been a father. Not in blood. Not in name. But in weight. And that weight was now ash in my hands. When Evan left, mumbled something about picking up supplies with his friends, I went into my office, locked the door, sat down at the desk that still had his school invoices folded under a pile of notebooks. I opened my laptop. No hesitation, no doubts, just decision. First, the venue. I pulled up the contract. My name, of course, was on it. My card had secured the deposit. The final balance, $4,200, was due by 5 p.m. that evening. One click. Cancel reservation. Refund partial. Penalty fee incurred. Done. Next, the catering service. I emailed them directly. I didn't apologize. Didn't explain. I simply said the event was no longer happening. Please cancel. Charge the minimum. The cake? A custom build that had taken 3 consultations to get just right. I messaged the bakery. Told them the order was no longer needed. Told them to donate it if they wanted. Or throw it out. I didn't care. Music. Lights. Event insurance. Guest gift bags. Gone, gone, gone. Every confirmation email I had saved over the past 2 months was opened and deleted. Like burning the pages of a book that had never been mine to write. I moved on to his bank transfers. Weekly allowance. Cancelled. Streaming services. Revoked. Uber credits. Gone. Meal plan top-ups. Declined. His university bill, the one due at the end of the month, was next. I opened the portal, stared at the 4-digit figure blinking at me like a dare. I had paid it every semester. Without fail. Without request. This time, I let the number stand. Unpaid. Unacknowledged. A clock ticking toward consequence. Last was the fuel card. The one I gave him the day he got his license, back when he still smiled sometimes. I opened the app and froze it. Not canceled. Just frozen. Like the relationship itself. Paralyzed. Suspended. Waiting for someone to breathe life into it. I leaned back in the chair. Not out of satisfaction. Out of exhaustion. Because it wasn't revenge. Not even close. It was release. I wasn't punishing him. I was letting go. I had been holding up a structure he never asked me to build. A life full of invisible scaffolding. And now I had walked away. Let the beams fall where they may. Let him see what stood when I stopped holding it all up. Karen knocked on the door around noon. Asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. Just work. She didn't push. She rarely did. That was the thing. I made her life easy. I solved the problems before they reached her feet. I absorbed the blows, carried the weight, made myself small so others could feel tall. But this time I said nothing, because the truth was blooming inside me. Slow, thorned, undeniable. They didn't love me. They needed me. And now they would learn the difference. That night I said I wasn't feeling well. Skipped dinner. Stayed in my office. Heard them laughing downstairs. Karen poured wine. Evan talked about the guest list again. He didn't know. Not yet. And I didn't tell him. Because it was better this way. Better for him to learn through silence. Through absence. To feel what I had felt for 17 years. The slow, aching realization that you are not seen. That you are only useful. That you are not loved, only used. The next morning was chaos. It began at 9:04 a.m. A scream from Karen. Then the sound of rapid footsteps across the tile. Then Evan's voice, sharp, confused, disbelieving. Wait, what do you mean canceled? He ran upstairs, slammed his door, called someone, the DJ maybe, the planner, someone who now had no paycheck coming. I listened. I let him flail. He came to my office at 9:42. Didn't knock. Just opened the door. His face was flushed, jaw clenched, phone in one hand like a wee *P***N. What did you do? I looked up slowly. He blinked, as if seeing me for the first time in years. Not the helper. Not the wallet. Not the man behind the curtain. Just me. A man who had finally stood up. I said nothing. He took a step in. The venue canceled. They said the balance wasn't paid. The cake is gone. The DJ's pissed. The guests, they're texting me asking if it's still happening. What the hell did you do? I closed the laptop, folded my hands, met his stare. I stopped. His eyebrows knit. Stopped what? Everything. A beat of silence. Then it landed. You canceled the party? I didn't answer. You just canceled everything? Without telling me? Without asking? Are you insane? Still, I said nothing. Because he knew. He already knew. He stepped back, rage boiling into something sharper. Do you know what this does to me? People are already posting about it. They're saying it's a scam. That I faked the whole thing. My girlfriend's pissed. My friends think I'm a joke. You ruined it. I stood, slowly, walked around the desk, stood in front of him, inches away, and I asked one question, quiet. When were you going to tell me I wasn't invited? He froze. His mouth opened, closed, and then silence. The first honest silence he'd given me in years. I nodded. You made your choice. You sent your message. Clear, cold, efficient. That wasn't. I held up a hand. You told me I'd be a nuisance, that I should stay away. So I did. I stayed away. From all of it. The party, the money, the support. He stammered. I was angry. I didn't mean. You did. He swallowed. Looked at the floor. You didn't even tell me. You just pulled the plug. Now my voice sharpened. No. I stopped carrying the weight. You built your life on the belief that I would always be there to fund your dreams. No matter how you treated me. But I'm not a ghost with a credit score. I'm a man. And I've had enough. He turned and walked out. No apology. No reflection. Just footsteps retreating like everyone he took was someone else's fault. Karen came to me later. Tried to mediate. Said he was just embarrassed. Said he would have come around. But I was done waiting for around. I had arrived at the edge of patience. And now I stood beyond it. The calls started that afternoon. First from Evan. Then from Karen. Then from numbers I didn't recognize, friends, classmates, maybe even the venue coordinator. All of them asking variations of the same question. Is this really happening? But the tone shifted with each new ring. At first, the calls were angry, demanding, then confused, hesitant, then careful, nervous even. But not once did the phone ring with the one thing I needed to hear. Not a single voicemail. Not a single text message with the words, "I'm sorry." No ownership. No responsibility. Just shock that I had done the one thing none of them ever thought I would do. Stop being useful. I didn't answer. I let the silence grow roots. At dinner, the three of us sat in the same space for the first time since the collapse. Karen had made pasta, Evan's favorite, not mine. The plate in front of me sat untouched. The garlic burned. The sauce was too sweet. He didn't speak. Neither did she. She kept glancing at him. Then at me. Then back again. As if she could bridge the growing chasm with glances and cutlery. But I kept my eyes on my plate. I didn't care to play the part anymore. For 17 years I'd been the bridge. The glue. The invisible line that held two pieces together. I carried the weight of our imbalance like a second spine. And now that I had stepped back, the house was lurching in every direction. It started with small things. Evan needed gas. The fuel card was still frozen. He asked Karen. She handed him her debit card. A week later, she was on the phone with the bank about an overdraft. He tried ordering food. The delivery apps he'd used with impunity now asked for a payment method. I watched him open and close the apps repeatedly, waiting for some miracle reset. He asked Karen to spot him for a birthday lunch with friends. The remnants of a celebration that no longer had a center. She did, but her tone was thin, hesitant. She knew the numbers didn't work without me. Then came the real problems. The university sent a warning. Tuition late. Grace period expiring. The landlord sent a letter. Rent unpaid. Final notice. Karen brought them both to me, placed the envelopes on the kitchen counter like they were foreign objects she didn't understand. "They're saying we're behind," she said softly. I didn't look up from my coffee. "We're not behind," I said. "He is." She swallowed hard. "He's panicking. He doesn't know what to do." I nodded. "Good." She blinked. "What do you mean good?" "He's scared." I met her eyes. He should be. For years, Evan moved through life with no memory of consequence. Things simply happened for him. The lights stayed on. The bills disappeared. The rent cleared. The food arrived. But now the rope was gone, and he was finally feeling the fall. He stormed in that night. "I need help," he said, voice tight. "I just need help until I figure it out." It was the first honest sentence he'd spoken to me in months. I said nothing. "I talked to Dad," he added softer. "He said he can't afford it right now, that he's between jobs." I nodded. Then maybe he shouldn't have had a child. The words hit him. He stiffened. "You've got to be kidding," he said. "He's never going to step up." I leaned forward. "Then maybe you shouldn't have spat in the face of the man who did." His face twisted. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. Because he finally understood what I was. Not the background noise. Not the afterthought. Not the man in the margins. I was the entire structure. And I had removed myself. "I didn't mean it," he said quickly. "The email. I wasn't thinking. I was just stressed." "No," I replied. "You meant it. You meant every word. Because that's how you've always seen me. And now that vision has cost you something." He turned to Karen. "Mom, say something." But she didn't. Because she couldn't. Because she had let it happen. She had let him believe that my role was permanent. That my labor was endless. That my patience would stretch to eternity. And now the reckoning had arrived. I left the room. Closed the door to my study. Let him sit with the silence. Over the next few days, the household shifted. Evan lingered at home longer than usual. No parties. No outings. He tried to act normal, but the anxiety leaked from every part of him. He asked Karen to cook more. He started cleaning without being told. He offered to take out the trash. He even asked how my day was. But none of it felt like respect. Felt like survival. Like a man building a raft from broken wood after setting fire to the ship. He was trying to reverse time, to undo a sentence, to reset a decision. But I had reached the point beyond forgiveness. Because respect, once lost, doesn't return through performance. It must be rebuilt with truth. Karen was quieter too. She hovered, watched me, sometimes tried to place a hand on my shoulder, like affection could erase complicity. I didn't reject her, but I didn't lean into her either. She had stood by too long, let too much pass, watched too many dismissals with folded arms and a tired sigh. And now, she saw what it meant when the pillar stepped away. One night, Evan came to me again. He was holding his laptop, eyes wide. They said I have 5 days. If tuition isn't paid by then, I lose enrollment. I nodded. I know. Can you, just this once? I swear I'll make it right. I'll pay you back. How? He blinked. You don't have a job, I said. You don't have savings. You don't have a plan. What you have is panic. And panic is not repentance. He looked down at his shoes. I didn't know how much you did, he whispered. I laughed. Not loudly. Just a dry, bitter exhale. No, you didn't care how much I did. That's the truth. He winced. I let the silence stretch. Finally, he said, I was just angry. I felt like you were trying to insert yourself into everything. I wanted space. And I gave it to you. He looked up. But now you want the parts you rejected. The safety, the money, the security. You want me to be invisible when it suits you, and indispensable when it hurts. He didn't deny it. I leaned back. You made your declaration. Now you live in the world it created. He nodded slowly, left the room. The days passed. The deadline came, and went. His university sent the final letter. He brought it to Karen. She cried. He cried. But I didn't move, because they needed to understand something no one had taught them. Love is not infinite, not when it's mistaken for weakness. The night he was officially dropped from enrollment, he sat at the kitchen table for hours. He didn't eat, didn't speak, just stared at the tablecloth like it could solve something he never learned to face. I sat across from him, watched him quietly. I don't know what to do now, he said. I nodded. He looked at me. His eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. Do you hate me? I paused. No, I said. I don't hate you. Then why? Because this is what growth looks like when it's been denied for too long. It's painful, sharp, unforgiving. You were given a life most boys dream of, and you spat on the hand that held it up. This isn't punishment. This is education. He didn't cry. Not then. But I saw it. The slow unraveling of the boy who thought love was a guarantee. And now here we are. A quiet house. A canceled life. Karen has stopped defending him. Stopped asking me to fix things. She walks the halls like a woman who's realized too late that peace built on silence is not peace. It's delay. And Evan? He still wakes up late. Still shuffles through the kitchen with a look that begs for a do-over. But I offer none. Because this is the cost. Of disdain. Of entitlement. Of a father ignored until the money stopped. So now I ask you, whoever reads this, was I cruel? Or did I finally act with clarity? When a man is treated like a tool long enough, is it wrong for him to put himself down? When love is met with absence, and sacrifice with scorn, what would you have done? Tell me, would you have endured it? Or would you have walked away like I did and let them feel for the first time the weight you'd been carrying all along?